Hello and welcome back to More Than a Game, a podcast dedicated to the Premier League, the A-Leagues and more. Today on the show, Australian football is officially back with less than a week from the new A-League season, which kicks off on the 19th of November. There's a lot to catch up on, so keep up. In this first season of the new era of the A-League splitting from Football Australia, we've got a new digital hub, tons of new players, new kits, and most importantly of all, boys, new ads. I'm your host, Colby, and here with me to take you through it all, we've got Tommie C, Damo and Jesse, full contingent on the panel today, boys. We'll start with you, Damo, because you're frothing. You're frothing to just get going, and you're also actually frothing there, I believe.
Yes, both. I'm frothing at the mouth and frothing in a glass. Good to be here. Can't wait to get stuck into some A-League previews, some A-League chat. We went to the game on Friday night, an FFA Cup game, and it made me real keen for some local football. So let's get stuck in.
There's a buzz in the air, and there's a buzz on social media as well, and you can really feel the build up. Tommie, how are you today, mate? And talk us through how pumped you're feeling.
Mate, feeling nice and fresh today. Really pumped up for the to talk some A-League. Really just excited for the next couple of weeks.
And last but not least, Jesse, mate, back in the Knicks kit, ready for another big season, ready to get stuck into some A-League chat. But how are you on this fine Sunday afternoon?
I'm good. I'm an esteemed company, and I'm ready to overplay the Knicks' chances. I need to watch them let me down again.
Well, boys, why don't we get stuck into it? So on the show today, we'll be going through all of the A-League teams. We'll be previewing each of their seasons, and we'll sort of finish up with a wrap-up of how we see the season as a whole playing out. We'll give you some predictions of who we think's going to win the thing, who we think's going to take out the wooden spoon. We'll set out from the start, get it on the tapes, who our boys are, and a bunch of other stuff too. But before we do all of that, we'll just get into some news items and have some high level discussion, because there's been a lot going on over the off season, and it feels like an especially long off season, which it normally is in Australian football. But I wanted to start off with Paramount Plus, or P Plus as we're calling it at More Than a Game. We've just had a variety of ads. I can't even keep up with all of the ads and the A-League's content that's coming out. Tommie, talk us through. You're a fan of the Ute tune, but has anything else caught your eye?
That is some brilliant subliminal messaging, isn't it? There from Paramount Plus, Channel 10, and co. But look, I just can't get enough of Channel 10's ads so far. I think they've done a really good job. It's been exciting, but it hasn't sort of like honed in on any specific part and just focused on that. It's been exciting. It's helped me rev me up for the upcoming season. So it's just been that was actually not intended, that pun. So it was until Jesse laughed and went, "Oh yeah, that was nice." But yeah, I'm excited.
Has anyone watched a game on Paramount Plus yet? Have we got the app? Have we got the service?
I've got the app, but there's been no games on it yet. They're all on 10 play at the moment. So
I thought the Roos were the Roos on the app the other night?
I think you could watch it on the app.
Right, okay.
Most people have just been watching stuff on 10 play. Yeah. And I'm yet to watch anything else on 10 play. On Paramount Plus as well. Haven't even watched an episode of Spreadsheet yet. So.
Yeah, Spreadsheet. That's also an important Paramount Plus
sleeper hit
feature there. And I just wanted to say welcome into all the listeners in the comments as well. We've got a few listeners in, and that's probably a testament to the hype there is around the A-League and Australian football getting back up and going. So hello to all the listeners in the chat. Feel free to comment us along the way and heckle us as well. So we've got Paramount Plus, we've got the ads, we've got Archie on MasterChef, somehow just still cooking. I don't know what he's actually doing, but he still seems to be on there. But we've also got Keep Up, which I've referenced a couple of times, and this is the new much anticipated digital hub that the A-Leagues or the Australian professional leagues have been talking about. And it's going to feature content from the A-Leagues, but also European football content in an attempt to keep football fans all in one place. It's going to let fans curate their own content. And there's going to be a site and an app that'll give you features, analysis on games, transfer news, as well as stories and stuff like that. So that all sounds pretty good to me. But other than the name, I don't really get this Keep Up business. Damo, did they just call it Keep Up because the World Game was still taken?
Yeah, I can't remember who made that point the other day, but it's definitely a void that's been left. And I think I said to you boys, I'm not sure what I expected from this A-League digital hub, but a replacement for the A-League website wasn't it. Because it feels like it's just exactly the same as what it used to be. It's just now labeled differently with a different URL.
The domain name FootHub was also taken. So keep up with the natural next option.
Wow,
you
that
guys
could have taken a turn.
Jesse's second favorite hub on the internet.
You guys do see the pun that they've made, right? Like keep ups, like where you like hacky sack kind of.
Keep ups. There's also keep up with the news. Yeah, there's a few. There's
a
few going on there.
Right. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Blowing my mind.
Been illuminated.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, that's the comparison that some have made to the World Game, and I think that's the more apt comparison, because the other one people were making was for the MyFootball app, which kind of covers you for Australian football, but it doesn't really get you there. It's not really a one-stop shop like Keep Up seems to be trying to be anyway, with men's and women's football on there and with European content as well. So we'll see how it goes. It looks pretty slick at the moment, but of course they're still working through a few kinks and they're adding bits and pieces and getting it set up. One thing a lot of people have been waiting to see if it'll be added, Tommie, and I think you were about to jump in on this, is A-League Fantasy. And we've been gassing it up on this podcast for a while, waiting for it to happen. And there's been a few whispers around and a few tweets from Danny Townsend and from other sources about a pack-based fantasy, which is coming soon. Tommie, do you know what this is?
So, as the Homer legend has just mentioned in the comments, so this is going to be, I think it's going to be sort of like week by week fantasy, rather than sort of like you maintain a team throughout the season. So it's going to be really interesting to see what that actually means. And it sounds like they're sort of taking maybe a different approach to this than maybe sort of your standard EPL fantasy or FPL. But I mean, there's a lot of different ways in which you can play a fantasy game. That I know, like there's Super Coach and Fan Tracks and various other sites that do this in slightly different ways. So I think what they're trying to do is trying to build a platform that will encourage people to stay the course for the entire season, rather than just sort of drop off after 3 rounds when you realize your team's garbage and it'll take you 5 weeks to rescue it.
Whatever way they do it, you want to make sure that it's like the whole purpose of it is engaging, because the whole reason why I want fantasy to be in the A-League is that it makes you learn the most obscure squad players, like players that, you know, you'd normally never even know that they were in the squad, and you'd have to find out who they are. And that's for me why I'm interested, because I mean, apart from the Integ A-League preview, of course, I need another source of info throughout the season as to who's coming and who's going from the squads. And I think fantasy is a great way of doing that, learning the names.
If they do, I've seen it thrown around, and you guys spoke about it just before, a pack-based kind of game where you open packs like FIFA Ultimate Team. I just can't wait to pack my boy in week 1. Stay tuned to find out who it is.
Oh, Damo, teaser. Oh, Jesse, that was a great segue before. Plenty of obscure A-League players coming up on the pod, because I tell you what, there has been a real influx of recruits over this off season, more so than I really realised. And plenty of clubs got their business done nice and early, but there's been a definite late flurry of players as well. And as usual, we'll be taking you through them as much as we can. But before we do that, I also just wanted to mention there's a new finals series. So the A-League this season is going to feature a 2-legged semi-final fixture for the first time since, I think, the early days of the A-League. We haven't seen this in many, many years. Damo, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of 2-legged semi-finals, and I think we might have spoken about this a couple of weeks ago on the pod about how it just adds that little bit of extra drama to the tie. We see it in Champions League football, and it just adds a little bit more flavour to a game, and both sets of fans get to have a home semi-final when it is that way too. So that makes it even better.
Do you think it adds any more drama and flavour than Archie on MasterChef?
No one adds more drama and flavour than Archie on MasterChef. I don't know. Like, I mean, has anyone watched it? Because I haven't. I mean, because I know, like, they, in that show, they have these things where they will, like, send someone. They'll be all like running to the pantry to, get their ingredients to start cooking up the latest challenge. And I've just wondered whether Archie's two-footed anyone on the way to the pantry yet.
I wonder if he's been tracking his runs from the kitchen to the pantry on Strava, because he's a big Strava man, Archie Thompson.
He's Strava man.
Not happy with the salary cap.
Just before we
Celery
leave,
cap.
Oh, no.
For anyone
Just
who
really-
maybe hasn't caught it, Destruction in the Box, rest in peace. They've also been doing all of the best clips of Archie on MasterChef on their Twitter timeline. So if you haven't seen that, it's basically the best way of catching Archie without actually watching the show, I guess. So.
I highly recommend it. Yeah, get on to Destruction in the Box's Twitter feed, which is still ongoing, even though their podcast, I think they've retired the podcast, but yeah, they'll bring you a lot of good content like that. So two-legged semis, even Strong in the chat says that two-legged semis are going to be there, but there's going to be no away goal rule. So that's going to be an interesting feature as well. And the away goal rule is a somewhat controversial rule in two-legged fixtures, as we've seen in European football and in the Champions League over the years. So that'll be interesting to watch, and we'll be bringing you that throughout the season of the A-League that we'll be covering. And we mentioned obscure players before, but we've also got a return of a lot of experienced players coming back into the A-League, back into the fold this season. Tommie, who have you got your eye on?
Oh, geez. Way to put me on the spot, mate. Look,
I noticed that you put this point on the run sheet, so I thought you might have something ready to go.
No, not at all. But look, it
You can't be put on the spot on your own point on the run sheet, can you?
No, look, there was a lot of players that went to India, to the Indian Super League, and made their return sort of late in the piece, maybe for the last sort of month of the last season. But for the remainder that didn't yet come back, it's looking like that they're going to be returning for the upcoming season. Which we talked about this a little bit on the season review pod last year about how it was one of the youngest sort of overall player. The average player age was very young compared to previous seasons. And I wouldn't be surprised if this year we see a bit of a rebound to seasons in the past where like the average age is going to be higher. So it could be a bit of a shame that that's a bit of a sort of a once off and just due to COVID. But I mean, you could find that coaches are more inclined to play more young players this season because they saw the benefits of it last year and maybe they've reaped the benefits of it too. So.
Well, yeah, I think based on what I've seen so far, that'll be really team specific. Some teams seem to have a really good mix of youth and experience, and some teams seem to be bringing in a few of the old journeymen again. So, why don't we get into that now? So, coming up next, we'll bring you our A-League team previews. So let's get into it, boys. So we'll be discussing last teams. For every team, they're finished for the season before this. Their major transfers in and out. What fans should be excited and nervous about. Our predicted finish, and we'll also review or preview their kits as well. And I think all of the kits are dropped now, so we'll be looking through them and giving them a rating as well. Look, why don't we just kick it off in alphabetical order? We'll go reverse in the review at the end of the season. But Damo, we'll start with you with Adelaide United.
Yeah, all right, I'll start with Adelaide United, and I'll kind of touch on a bit about their last season. Really inconsistent throughout the season. It kind of cost them a really good campaign, in short. And they finished well, a solid run home, and that huge finals win, obviously in Brisbane, the first team to beat Brisbane in a final. So they ended the season on a good note. Craig Goodwin was injured at the time, and obviously they'll be relying heavily on him this season with a full preseason under his belt. That's my boy Craig Goodwin, that is. And I mean, I think what Adelaide fans are going to be talking about, what they're going to be excited about all season, is just the amount of youngsters they've got in their team that seemingly is a never-ending kind of conveyor belt of talent that comes out of Adelaide. At the moment, they've got Bernardo, who Tommie and I were talking about this the other night, is Cassio's son, for those who remember Cassio from Adelaide United. So Bernardo, he's 18 years old, and he signed a first-team contract. Obviously, there's still Mo Toure, who's still only 18. Kusuni Yengi, Luis Dorigo, Johnny Yull. I mean, these guys are all teenagers still playing, going to play prominent parts in the team, you would imagine. And they've got 14 players in their squad who are 24 years old or younger. So that's a pretty good thing. And we're talking about young players before and getting opportunities. There's definitely young players at Adelaide. And I think a massive in for them is Isaias is coming back, one of their favourite sons. He's returning from a stint in the Qatari League. Obviously, he was at Adelaide United during some of their most successful years when they made the grand final. They won the grand final at home, and I think he scored the free kick in the grand final. So, yeah, he's a fan favourite, and he's back. And they've brought in Nick Ansell as well, who's he's a solid. He's had a few good seasons. And then another player they brought in is George Blackwood, obviously from Oldham. So I don't know if anyone's got any comments about that.
Tommie's just waiting to burst in with some Oldham chat.
I'm dying to just drop a prosciutto joke or something like that about.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see how he goes. Obviously, he left the A-League a couple of years ago now. I think he went over and joined up with Harry Kuehl, and that didn't really work out very well for either of them. So he's back in the A-League, and I'm sure trying to get back into goal scoring form. As for things that, like I said before, Adelaide will be excited about is the young players, but I think particularly Mo Toure, with Tommie Juric and his brother Al Hassan Toure both leaving, means there's going to be a lot more responsibility on Mo Toure leading the line at times. So he's kind of going to be thrust into a lot of responsibility, and they're going to have to depend on a lot of his goals. So we'll see if he can stand up. He's still only really young, but obviously everyone is talking about him in really good terms. And Craig Goodwin, of course, he's my boy. He's one of the best players in the league when he's at his best, but he encapsulates Adelaide United. He's really inconsistent, and he can be brilliant or he can be horrible, but I'm sure a full preseason for him, he'll be flying and ready to go. What they'd be nervous about is, on the flip side of having so many young players, they're just inexperienced. They've got only six players in their whole squad who are over the age of 29. So you kind of have to marry experience with youngsters, and we'll see if they've got the right balance. But one to watch this season is definitely Johnny Yull or Yull. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he played 2 games in the league last season as a 15-year-old, still only 16. And I'm sure he's going to get a fair few more games this year, as Carl Viet's kind of spoken about him a fair bit in preseason and played him a few times. So, he's another one of my boys this season is Johnny. So I've got 2 boys at Adelaide. So get around me.
It's 2 boys already.
And
someone's got to keep count.
Adelaide, a successful season for Adelaide is making the finals. I think that's what they did last year. They've got to do that again, and I've got them just finishing in at 6th. So I think they'll just get the job done. They'll be in a kind of finals battle all year, I think, and they'll really kind of push home like they did last year. And if we're talking about their kits, I don't really know what the brand manufacturer UCAN is. I'm assuming a random Chinese manufacturer, but that could be a very bad assumption of my own. But
no, you're right.
If you look at the kit, like the home kit especially is exactly what I picture Adelaide United's kit being. It's just a plain bold red with a white sponsor. There's a bit of pinstriping around the sleeves, and I gave that 9.5 Flinders Universities out of 10.
What about the Australian outdoor living away kit though?
Yeah, it's very fishing shirt vibes. So I'm not a big fan of the away shirt, but hopefully they just wear the home shirt every game.
Damo, you haven't mentioned the peach coloured kit. I think that's the away or the third kit, isn't it?
I don't know. I didn't know they had a third kit. You informed me of the peach kit.
Oh, it's got more than a game in the neckline as well. So there's a bit of a shout out to us in Adelaide United's kits.
There we go.
An homage.
It must be because I've got 2 boys at Adelaide.
And look, that Australian outdoor living one, Damo, I think you're right. It's like the fishing shirt. If you put long sleeves and a collar on that, it's just like you could just take it out on the boat for a day, couldn't you?
Yeah. Wouldn't look
Oh,
out
very
of
good.
place. That's at the Gold Coast.
No, it wouldn't. And we're close to the Gold Coast now because I'm going to go next with a preview of Brisbane Roar's season. So last season, there were one of the major themes of the season last year was the flabby middle, I'm calling it, where they started the season with a bang. I don't know what they did in the middle, and then they came home strong before going out of finals with a whimper, and that's frustrated a lot of Brisbane Roar fans, finishing fourth again and just sort of not really making a splash in the finals, as well as losing Dylan Wenzel-Halls, who spearheaded the local youth revolution at Brisbane, and what Warren Moon is trying to do in sort of bringing up a lot of local young talent. But that was something they'll be frustrated about. But I think the fans this season are going to be talking about the new recruits and the breakout youth players. In terms of the ins, speaking of new recruits, there's too many to name on this podcast, but a few standouts. You've got Matty Steinman coming back or coming over from the Phoenix via a European vacation, or bit of playing over in Europe, but he'll give a lot of steel to the midfields. We've got, who else have we got? Nikola Milioznich, still just 28. Didn't realize this. Apparently he's faster than Haaland, which is all the hype around him, but I think he's still got a lot to offer the A-League. And that entire forward line at Brisbane's just been completely changed this season, as they'll also welcome in Argentinian Juan Lescano, who's most recently played in the Russian National League, but will bring a lot of experience with him as well. And sort of backing him up, they've brought in Luke Ivanovic, who I think I would much rather see on the bench than Gogol Mabratu. So that's a positive for Brisbane. They've also they've lost Jamie Young as well as Dylan Wenzel-Halls to the Woo. So those are pretty big outs. But in their place, Warren Moon strengthened up the back line in bringing in Jordan Holmes, and I think they'll finally bring through Macklin Freak to sort of battle it out for the number one spot in goals this season. So plenty going on. And they've also brought in another one to watch, I would say, Jess Lofthouse. He was MPL Queensland Young Player of the Year, and he's a real local fan favourite. People just love this guy. He's 22 and came over from Olympic. So you should keep your eyes on him as well. But I think that starting with the thing that fans will be excited about, it's got to be Parsons. Alex Parsons, my boy, let's just put it out there now, lit up the league last season, broke through into the first team and was unplayable at times towards the end of the season, putting on 3 goals and 2 assists late on. The club rewarded him with his first ever A-League contract at the end of the season. He's still just 21, born in Ipswich. He's a boyhood fan of the club. And he's taken responsibility of wearing the number 22 this season, most famously worn not by Jake McGing, but of course Thomas Broich. So he's clearly ready to make that step up. He's asked for the 22, and it's a big number to put on your back in this club. So I'm really looking forward, and I think a lot of people are excited about what he'll bring in terms of his development this season. Fans should be nervous about the defence. So last season, we had the second best, or the Raw had the second best defence in the league behind Sydney, but we've lost Jamie Young and Macaulay Gillespie, who not a lot of people are talking about as a key out, but I think he was very underrated in what he brought to the defence. But of course, Warren Moon's got Kai Truan and Scott Neville to draw on, and that'll give him the flexibility to either play 3 or 4 at the back. And you've got Freak, who's shown that he's capable of stepping in at A-League level when he stepped in, of course, when Jamie Young was injured last season. And then, as I said, Warren Moon's also brought in Jordan Holmes for a bit of competition, who's been through Bournemouth's youth system, and he's had a bit of experience on loan in various clubs across the UK as well. So there's a couple of young goalkeepers who'll be battling it out for that spot this season, and I think it could go to either of them.
And I think the Raw also just signed, sorry to interrupt, they just signed Wollongong Wolves goalkeeper, who's actually a New Zealand youth international and has come from Wolves to the Raw. I think he signed earlier this week. So they've got three young keepers there, which should be good. We saw 3 young keepers, I think it was at Adelaide United last year, and kind of 2 of them broke out. So it could be a similar thing at the Raw.
It'd be Aidan Munford you're talking
That's
about.
it.
Yeah, follow him on Twitter.
Wollongong Wolves.
Shout out to Munford on Twitter. I was just going to say my main takeaway there about the young fan favourite is that Queenslanders love a lofthouse. Thoughts on that, Cobbs?
Can't confirm or deny that, Jesse. But,
It's just a floodplain. Brisbane's a floodplain, so
one to watch though. I'll have my eye on Cyrus Demi, the 19-year-old forward born on the Ivory Coast to Liberian parents. Came to Brisbane in 2010 as a refugee. Went to school out at Churchie and has been banging in goals for the youth team. And we've seen him lighting up the FFA Cup already this season, scoring that hattie against Lions. So I think he's also going to have a bit of a breakout season. And if a few of the new forwards don't click, I think he'll get plenty of minutes and he'll get his opportunities this season as well. So a successful season for the Raw, of course, is making finals, but they'll be looking not to get knocked out early and they'll be looking to make an impact and play some more entertaining football again this season. Again, I'm predicting them to finish fourth. But I think they're going to go through to the semis this season, and they're going to have a little bit more of an impact. So, but importantly, let's get to their kit, boys. So they've gone from Umbro to New Balance. So this is the first New Balance number for the Raw, and it's a predominantly orange home kit, white away, and black third kit, as we've seen over the years with the Raw. And there's a nice little detail of Hollandia and Ala in the crest inside the neckline, and it's got a nice embroidered badge on the away kits, or the away and the third kits. But what it does have is these 5 angled stripes that sort of fade across the chest, but they look a bit like tire tracks. And I was having a bit of a Google around, and I couldn't find anything about what these stripes are meant to be. I don't get it.
it looks like the N on the New Balance logo. I think that's what it's supposed to look like.
Oh no!
You know how the ends all striated like that.
It's got the same little fade out, but they look like the players have just been run over by like cars with New Balance tread on them. So I'm giving them 5 skid marks out of 10.
It's real Brisbane suburban areas there, and finer girl that's as loyal to you as Brisbane Raw are to Act on Air.
I know.
that sponsorship deal just keeps on giving, doesn't it?
If you've ever lived in Brisbane through
It's
a
essential.
humid, swampy summer, you'll know how important air conditioners are. So Brisbane have really got their priorities straight, I think.
Yeah,
So
Action Air have got their target audience, that's for sure.
The boys will have some Actron air conditioning in their changing rooms, I hope, in the clubhouse and stuff. So yeah.
What clubhouse?
What a sponsor! Oh, sorry, I mean their cars as the players travel between the Gold Coast and Redcliffe and other parts of Queensland for their matches. But that's the Raw, boys. So why don't we keep moving? So coming up next, Central Coast Mariners, Damo.
Yeah, look, Central Coast last year everyone loved to talk about them. They were the real surprise package. They kind of fell off towards the end of the season, but they're incredible to watch for the vast majority of the year. And I guess the question is obviously Stadge is leaving. And that's probably what the fans are going to be nervous about, what they're going to be talking about. Was last season a fluke? Were they only good because of the manager? Can they stay as competitive this season? It's all kind of questions that they're going to ask. And they've lost a few key players, particularly in Danny Da Silva, Alu Kuol, Clisbino, and Gianni Stensner. So there's a few key players they've lost there. And I guess the nervousness for the fans would be if they're able to replace them, and they've gone an interesting way. Obviously, Nick Montgomery is the new manager, and he's got a lot of contacts throughout Europe, and he's gone and he's signed a few players from leagues that we don't necessarily see players come to the A-League from. He signed Mattias Maresh, a striker from the Singapore Premier League. Benny, I don't know how to pronounce his surname, but he just goes by Benny, and he scored in the FFA Cup midweek, and he's from the French National, so the French third tier. And then they also signed Psy Goddard, who was at Mumbai City last year, but he was loaned out from a Serie B team, and previously before that was at Spurs Youth Academy. So there's there's a lot of talent there, could be, but when you sign players like this from leagues that people in Australia aren't really aware of, it's kind of a real unknown. So that would be a real nervous point for the fans. Are those new recruits going to be able to replace the guys that played so well last year together? But I mean, what they'd be excited about is finally coming into a season where they've got expectations to be better than battling for a wooden spoon. It feels like for the last 5 or 6 years, Mariners fans have just been so pessimistic about the season, but they turn up anyway. So this year they've actually got expectations that they could do something good. There's a lot of optimism around the club, and hopefully that brings some big crowds in at Gosford, obviously now with people allowed back at games.
Damo, if the Mariners get off to not a great start, is it going to be a case of the hope that kills you after a promising season last year and then losing Sturridge? Is this going to be a big blow to the Mariners?
I don't know, because you would think if it's a big club with a lot of pressure from the fans and from the media, I would say definitely. But Central Coast, they're kind of used to being mediocre for a long time. So there's this optimism, but then if the optimism goes, it's kind of like, well, we are what we are. It's back to status quo. So I don't feel like it for them. It would be the end of the world. I don't want to speak for Central Coast fans, but the start of the season will be the real test. I do agree with that. But I think the ones to watch this year for the Mariners is I've picked out 2 players, and the first one is Lewis Miller, who's a young defender. I think he's only 21 or 22 years old. He's massive. He's a young, strong defender, and Nick Montgomery is a huge fan of him. Actually was a mentor of his while Miller was in the youth academy at Central Coast when Montgomery was involved in coaching there and backroom staff there. So he's liked him for a while, and he's up to the first team and played a whole bunch of games last year. And I feel like this year will be his real breakout year, because obviously he just got caught up to a recent Ollie Roos squad in that new look Ollie Roos squad. So he could have a future there. And then the other one is Psy Goddard, who I kind of spoke about before. He was on loan at Mumbai City last year and didn't really play. He's come from Serie B and a couple of other clubs and the Spurs Academy. And he was really highly touted as a youth team footballer, and has played very, very little first team senior football in the last 4 or 5 years. You could probably count a dozen games over that time. So there's obviously some talent there, and maybe he's come to Australia to kind of trying to put that together finally. So he could be brilliant, or he could probably never play. So it's definitely one to watch, because it'll be interesting either way. I think a successful season for Central Coast again would be making finals. I think a lot of fans would want them to make finals, but I've got them finishing 9th. I just feel like it'd be a bit too much of an ask to again have to rely on Matt Simon to do a lot of the dirty work, although that's his favorite thing to do. As for their kit, so their kits are Paladin, another unique kit manufacturer that the A-League's found themselves this year. And I mean, all 3 of their kits are pretty much exactly the same design. They're a block color with one little stripe through the middle, and yellow with a stripe. And I think Mate is a new Sydney-based internet and kind of mobile provider that sponsor Matt Ryan and Sam Kerr, funnily enough. So they've tried to target the football market, and obviously now sponsor Central Coast. And I really don't like these kits. I've given them a 5 mates out of 10.
Mate, the home kit is like a reverse Boca Juniors kit. I kind of wish that they had have just gone with the Boca Juniors sort of blue with like the yellow band through the middle.
Well, the away kit should have been that, but the away kit is blue with 2 yellow pinstripes instead of a yellow block.
Were you saying, Tommie, Maradona inspired?
Oh, no.
There we go.
Thanks for the Central Coast wrap-up, Damo, but we're sticking with you for MacArthur. Give us a preview of the Bulls coming up season.
Yeah, look, the Bulls could be anything this year, and we kind of said that last year. They were a brand new team last year, and they started with a whole new squad, and it almost feels like they've done exactly the same this year. So it's kind of a fresh start, I guess, after you've only been in the league for 1 year. I don't really know how that works, but I guess that's what fans would kind of be excited about, is because last year it was kind of hard for them to have expectations of where they might finish. They've had a huge turnover in players. And I mean, there's been a whole bunch of rumors in the off season about the locker room culture and rumors why a couple of their senior players have retired. And Then there was anti-vax rumors about a couple of their players, and a lot of other stuff went on. So yeah, it's a real unknown at this stage. But I mean, obviously everyone's going to be talking about the people they've brought in, the players they've brought in. They brought in a lot, and they've brought in a lot of players that have left their previous A-League clubs to prefer to go to MacArthur, which is kind of a good sign for the club that they're able to attract that kind of talent. And they bring in the current Johnny Warren medalist, obviously, from the Knicks, which is a huge loss for them. I'm sure Jesse will talk about that, but a huge gain for MacArthur. Philip Curto is another good player at the Woo last year. Jordan Much from the Wanderers, Tommie Urich, Danny De Silva, Craig Noon, Tommy Uzcock, Al Hassan Toure. Those are all big. I mean, you could say that it's a good set of signings. On paper, one of the best kind of recruitments there has been from any team in the league. But again, I guess the worry is, are they going to be able to play together? Have they trained enough together? Are they really going to gel as a team? Can Milicic kind of get them going? So I think that the squad, though, feels a lot more reliable than last year. Last year, there was a couple of players you didn't really know what to expect. The Spanish guys in midfield, no one really knew who they were.
Damon, what about Derbyshire? He was pretty reliable last season, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'll just touch on him. So what I was going to say was, I hated Matt Derbyshire last year, but ended up being probably their best player. And
second top scorer in the league.
When saying that, they've lost their top 5 goal scorers from last season. So they lost Derbyshire. Then I can't remember who the other 4 were. I think Milligan was in there. Someone else is 26 goals between their 5 top goal scorers all left. So I guess the question is can Urich, Noon, Davila, and Al Hassan Toure score 26 goals in between them? Because they're essentially the new players to come in to replace them.
Surely.
All these new signings must be a real shot in the arm. Would you guys agree?
No
shots good in the arm at MacArthur. Come on.
And my one to watch this year is Antonus Martus. He played there last year. I think he played nearly the whole season. He probably only missed half a dozen games, but he's a young guy who's actually on contract with Midtjylland and was loaned out last year to MacArthur, and they've extended his loan another 12 months. So I feel like last year it was kind of his breakthrough year in senior football. He finally got a whole bunch of games, and this year he'll really kind of cement his spot in the team as like a real key focal point of one of their best players in midfield. A successful season, I think, for MacArthur would be finishing in the top 4. I think their squad on paper is good enough to do that. But I just don't feel like for some reason it's going to click. And I've got them finishing in the finals, but 5th, just scraping their way into the finals. So maybe a good finals campaign on the back of that. I think they'd be expecting that, but they should make finals. I think that's a minimum requirement, I think, for the club this year. If we get to their kit, it's a Macron kit this year. Interestingly enough, it's horrible. It's half stripes, half block sash color at the top.
Real Udinese vibes.
I don't know why they've gone with the stripes. I really liked the block colors they had last year. I thought that worked really well. The description that they gave on their club website was that it said, touched with ochre piping to highlight the black vertical stripes. The eye-catching pattern incorporates a modern twist with a white sash across the chest. It's a really nonsense way to say we've got a shit kit.
It's like we didn't know whether we wanted stripes or sash, so we just went with both.
So they went with both, and then their away kit is just the solid M-Tag favorite piss yellow.
That's cheeseburger wrapper, thank you very much.
Hungover piss yellow.
Dehydrated piss yellow.
That's real dehydrated piss, that one, yeah.
Yeah, so that's I've given those kits a 2 wisdom homes out of 10.
Wowee. That's scathing from you, Damo, but thanks for the review of MacArthur's season. And we'll certainly be watching them with interest because of their recruitment and all of the stories that have been following them throughout the off-season. But we will move on. We've got 2 of the Melbourne teams coming up next. Tommie, let's hear your preview for Melbourne City.
Yeah, somehow I ended up with all three Melbourne teams this year to preview, so looking forward to that. But look, Melbourne City, they finally fulfilled their untapped potential last season. They scored goals for fun, played great football, and blew the competition away, finishing first and winning the grand final. Jamie McLaren was explosive and looked too good for the league at times, scoring 25 goals, a massive 11 more than the second-placed Matt Derbyshire, that name again. While influential and inconsistent, Craig Noon and Adrian Luna have left. City do have a front three that wouldn't look out of place to the Socceroos in Jamie McLaren, Andrew Naboo, and Matthew Leckie. Manuel Pucciarelli has also joined, but it's unclear what position he will play as the number 10 or backup for Jamie McLaren. They'll be expecting some young players to step up this season in Taras Gamorka, Aidan O'Neill, Steph Kolakowski, and of course, Marco Tilio. With Tilio and Kolakowski likely to be pushing Leckie, Naboo, and J-Mac for their starting spots all season long. One to watch in the City squad is young Rafael Borges Rodriguez, young talent who should get his chance to shine throughout this season at only 18, so keep an eye out for him. Overall, this is a really settled club, though, with only injuries, I think, likely to ruin their chances of going back-to-back as premiers and champions. It's hard to go back-to-back in the A-League or any competition around the world, but Paddy Kazumba has shown that he can build upon the foundations of Eric Mombert and combine a winning edge to attractive and tactically astute football. I'm predicting Kaznorbo can continue City's success this season, and I think they'll finish first again. Onto the kits, though. City's kits, I actually think that City's kit maker, Puma, is probably the only top-tier kit manufacturer in the A-League at the moment, which probably says more about the A-League than it does about Melbourne
and the
City.
only reason City have got Puma is because Puma signed a deal with the City Football Group, not with Melbourne City.
Oh.
Have a bit of that, Tommie.
Every A-League fan is just taking that very personally. Thank you very much. But look, yeah, City's kits are made by Puma, and look, all three of them are very slick, I should say. There's a comeback of the heart-inspired sash, which I've got to say I'm a little bit disappointed by it. They've tried to sort of like make it really modern, and the sash itself looks like it's kind of fading into.
Is that a New Balance tire tread on that, Tommie?
Yeah, it's the same sort of feel, isn't it? And it just, I don't know. I've been like every time I see it, I like it less and less, which I'm really disappointed by. I'm going to give all three kits 7 gold A-League logos out of 10, though.
White sleeves on the home kit, which is
don't know about that, Tommie.
Well, I don't mind it. I actually think look, I want to love the sash kit, but I think the home kit is very strong. The away kit the second kit is interesting with like sort of a what is it? I think I'm not even sure what color you'd call it, but it's got like an interesting pattern in the background. I don't know. It looks very modern, looks very sleek. I don't know. I think they're all good kits without being incredible though. Definitely no classics in there.
Tommie, we went to see City on Friday night in the Cup against South Melbourne. I guess the only note I've got is that Marco Tilio didn't really have the ability to do his little keep the ball in thing because there was very little grass between the running track and the grass and the sideline. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see his party trick, but hopefully during the year we will.
Yeah, look, I think let's just sort of pause and just sort of take that game with a bit of a grain of salt, given that, I mean, South Melbourne, how hard were Melbourne City really even trying against them? Wait until they're playing a proper opposition, I think.
Oh, jeez.
Well, they'll have a proper opposition on day one as they take on Brisbane Roar at home at Amy, Tommie. So
yes, they will.
We shall see. What about the VUC? Give us your season preview for the Melbourne Victory.
Yeah, look, the VUC, they hit rock bottom last season, finishing 12th, the first team to ever finish 12th, with being the first season with 12 teams. But there has been some serious investment on and off the field this year to basically to do everything to avoid a repeat of that. Headlining the revolution at the VUC is Tony Popovic. And look, by now we know what to expect from Popper. They're going to be defensively hard to beat, and obviously going to be very, very competitive. But both the VUC and Popper will be motivated for a strong performance after poor seasons from both parties last season. Returning from his failed Greek journey, Popper is going to be hoping for an epic 2021-22 at the Victory. He's overseen a major clean-out with a bunch of flops from last season to move on in Adama Traore, Callum McManaman, Storm Rue, Rudy Jested, Jacob Butterfield, and Elvis Cansober as well. Midfielder Josh Brillante and Croatian keeper Ivan Kalava, don't know how you say that, apologies, have both joined from Xanthi in Greece, while Rai Mashan feels very similar to Popper bringing in One Day and Dimas to Glory and Wanderers respectively. Popper has also brought in known quantities in back from sabbatical Matthew Sporanovic, Jason Guerrier, and Jason Davidson. It also feels a bit like Nick D'Agostino's career is on a bit of a precipice after a less than flattering few years at the Glory, despite plenty of promise. While Jake Brimmer will be hoping to build upon a promising first season at the VUC. Ben Flamy needs to build on an inconsistent debut A-League season, while Robbie Cruz and Marco Rojas remain injury-prone but fantastic players for the VUC. VUC will be hoping they can get 15 starts out of each of those two experienced pros if they're going to be key contributors to any success for the VUC next season. But look, with a strong defence and decent midfield, it may be the VUC's ability to score goals that defines their season. You've got 28-year-old Francesco Maggiotta, a little bit of mayo there. He joins after a lean 2 years since he scored 27 goals and 23 assists in 87 games in the Swiss top flight. It's either a goal or an assist every second game. So not bad if you consider that he'll have probably two of Ben Flamy, Marco Rojas, Robbie Cruz, and Chris Economides next to him. I'm predicting that this is going to be a significant improvement for the VUC this year, but I think they're going to make finals, but I'm not sure how deep they're going to go because, I mean, this is a playing group and a club that's had to do a major cultural reset over the past few months, and I suspect it may not be long enough for the VUC to be pushing for titles again this season. I'm predicting they'll finish 5th.
Tommie, if they called it the Popper VUC, yeah, is that a thing?
I don't think I've seen that yet, and I feel like that should be a thing.
Happy to claim that.
It's I think it'll be interesting to see if the fans start coming back to the ground, if they start having any sort of success again, because obviously Melbourne Victory have prided themselves on getting enormous crowds and having an enormous membership base. And last couple of years, we've seen that sort of really dwindle away. So it'll be interesting to see if it's success that brings them back or if anything can bring them back.
Well, I mean, also the White Stripes need commission on every goal as well. So there's that expensive. As well.
I think there is some genuine excitement back around the club, and the management did acknowledge that something had gone sour at the club, and I think a lot of fans see that bringing Popper in is going to be a big reset on that. So I think there's plenty of optimism around the club again. But look, as far as the kits go, the VUC are sponsored by Macron now, not Adidas. So you could say that's a result of both the A-League and Melbourne Victory's decline over the past few years. But look, the home kit is exactly what you expect. It's navy with a white V on the chest. The away kit is the reverse, white kit with a navy V on the chest. They're not great kits. They're not terrible kits. I'm going to give them 5.5 Macron chevrons out of 10, though.
Look, I think it's hard to get Victory's home kit wrong because you know exactly what to expect. And Macron have got this so wrong. It looks like one of those shiny, like Kmart versions that you buy. That's like that doesn't have any brand manufacturer on it anywhere. It looks like a horrible material. Like you wouldn't breathe.
It's disgusting. It's like satin.
This is running around in football in a satin top.
Just imagine Australian summer.
Just imagine all the static electricity as well.
I think that goes to Tommie's point as well, because I think a lot of the kits have that shiny, like Kmart training kit look to them this season as well. And that just goes to Tommie's point about the sort of upper tier of kit manufacturers no longer being in the A-League. So while some of the designs are on point, the execution of a lot of them is just a little bit off, I think. And Ivan in the chat just notes about the fluoro at the end of the sleeve. He's saying, give us the fluoro third kit we all want. So, Yeah,
I don't know what Melbourne
Victory used to have a
Victory's-
fluoro kit back in the
Yeah,
day.
and-
Didn't have a fluoro.
Yeah, and their fans have
reverse
got
kit.
this like incredible affinity for the fluoro kit. They all want it back.
But
I
that
don't know why they love it.
But there was a very specific time when kit makers all around the world were making fluoro kits, right? Like
Yeah.
Barcelona had like a bright orange one, I think, and like Chelsea had a bright yellow one. Like it was just like that time, that specific period in kit design where it was the thing to do, and like it's not coming back. And I've got to say, I'm thankful that it's not.
Well, we'll move on then, boys. Newcastle United Jets. I'll be taking them, and they do have a nice shiny boy of a kit, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, just with the sort of theme of the off season or from last season, or their frustrations, all started late in the off season last year with losing Carl Robinson. Like it was days or at least a week or so before the season last year, and that just set the tone for the whole year. They were sort of avoiding the drain ownership-wise with concerns looming, and they somehow avoided the spoon on the last day when they beat Melbourne City to hand the wooden spoon to Vuck. This season, the Jets, I think Jets fans will be feeling pretty a renewed sense of optimism, I think, with Arthur Papas coming in and Papas bringing the goods in terms of recruitment. Like the Raw, the Jets have brought in a shitload of new recruits, because last season about the Jets, I think they'd brought in like 2 or 3 players. This season, they've brought in something like 14 players, with the whole defensive line being rejuvenated with Yerman and Jordan Elsey coming in and looking like they'll be the pairing at centre back. German coming back from Xanthi, and Jordan Elsey coming over from Adelaide. They've also brought in on loan 23-year-old Daniel Pena. Pena, yes, on loan from Atletico Mineiro B, and he scored a cracking free kick in their FFA Cup round of 32 loss to the Woo. So he's looking like he'll be a decent player. Sam Silvera on loan from Pakos, looking like that'll be a spicy little element to the derby with the Mariners. And then up front, the attack is renewed as well and there's some very tricky names to pronounce here, so there may be a little bit of mayo. You've got Becca Mikel Tatze, a 23-year-old centre forward, also from Xanthi. So I feel like there's the entirety of Xanthi's team playing in the A-League this season. You've got Oliver Boomel, a 32-year-old midfielder. I think he might be an attacking midfielder and a former Cameroonian international. And Sava Siatsvanis, a 28-year-old forward from the Greek Super League 2. So, so I think a bit of the theme for Papas is he's had to go to places that you wouldn't normally go. And I think, Damo, you said this about another club. Newcastle are one as well. You said it about the Mariners. Newcastle also need to go searching in unusual places to find talent to put into their team. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. In terms of the outs, of course, Roy O'Donovan's left the club, their top scorer last season. And then basically every single centre-back almost they had on the books, with Bugard retiring, Topple Stanley going to the Woo, Kutrumbis going to Western Sydney Wanderers, Donachie going to Sydney, Lockie Jackson going over to Suwon, Blue Wings, Teta Yengi going off to Ipswich. So they've just had a massive clean out at centre back, and of course Joey C swerving the return to Newcastle to pop off to the Turkish Super League.
Must be good opportunities for a rap career in Turkey. Is that why he's headed back over there?
That's right. So we'll we'll keep our eyes on that, and we'll bring to the listeners any new rap tracks we hear from any player this season. But in terms of the things that Newcastle fans might be getting excited about, I said it at the top. It's Arthur Papas. He's already been coaching for over a decade at 41. He was, of course, the assistant to Ange at Yokohama in that title winning season in the J1. Before a brief stint coaching as a head coach in the J3. And, he's had a big impact already with the signings he's been able to bring in. So really excited to see what he'll do in the A-League. And I'm sure Newcastle fans are as well. But of course, they should be nervous about their young players not improving and they're like the sort of likes of Thurgate and players at their club that have been threatening to improve for a while, and basically a big hole being filled in defence. I think Matty Yerman and Jordan Elsey can do it, but with turnover, you've always got problems that you're going to need to watch for, and of course the new forward line and how they're going to gel together as well, and where the goals are going to come from. A couple to watch. I mentioned Angus Thurgate. He's still just 21. Last year, we were all saying it should have been his year. He should have broke out, and he sort of didn't go onto the boil like we're expecting. So, hoping for a big season for him this year, or else he's going to be the new who are we talking about?
Thurgate.
Rule. Sorry.
No. The name will come to me, but the new player who doesn't fulfill their potential in the A-League. Archie Goodwin,
Bruce
though,
Kamau.
just 7. Bruce Kamau. He's going to be the new Bruce Kamau, Thurgate, if he keeps having mediocre seasons after all the promise he's shown. But Archie Goodwin, I think you should have your eyes on him as well. 17 now, playing as a second striker. I think he'll get minutes, especially if the forward line doesn't click. And yeah, I think I'm really excited to see what he will do.
Put him in your A-League fantasy team. Here to here first.
Yeah, it'll be cheap. So a successful season for the Jets. Again, it'll be avoiding the spoon, but I think they have to be thinking, and every A-League team has to be thinking about having a crack at the top 6. And I think that's what Papas will have his eye on. I think, again, they're going to finish 11th. On to the kit, though. So the Jets have often had a gold kit as their third kit, and, being a nod to some of their classic kits and good big moments they've had as a club, and they're tied to a lot of good memories for Newcastle fans. But this season, they're going to be playing in the gold strip as their primary kit. So this looks like another Viva number, whereas last season I think they went to I think it was like a Viva spin-off called Appel or something like that. They messed around with sort of this offshoot brand last season, but they're back on Viva with the kits this season. I'm not a fan of the sponsor not being blended in, the Port of Newcastle, with the white background on the gold kit. Like, come on, guys. But I do like what it might represent for the fans and a fresh start for the team this season. So I'm giving it 7 golden opportunities out of 10.
Oh, God. I got nothing to say about that kit.
Every club loves a hashtag, and this one's hashtag bonded by gold.
That is, and in terms of inspiring hashtags, that's not one of them.
I reckon the only way you could make that kit worse is if you get a very unpopular prime minister to hold it up.
All right, Tommie. Well, why don't we just keep going with your preview of Perth Glory?
Yeah, here we go. So, look, Richie Garcia's Perth Glory will be hoping to rebound from a pretty average 2020-21 campaign where the Glory finished 9th. Incredibly, they scored the 3rd highest number of goals, just one less than second most Wanderers, but their defence conceded the 2nd most goals after the woeful victory. They'll be hoping that COVID doesn't continue to wreak havoc on their scheduling again, and that they can get into a proper rhythm this season. And look, hopefully that rhythm will be able to be set by new signing Daniel Sturridge, the big key man, not only for the Glory, but also, I guess, for the league in general. He's brought some real sort of star power to the league that we haven't really seen for quite some time. Daniel Sturridge doesn't have a great fitness record. He's only played, I think, 15 games in the last 2 seasons. But
doesn't have a great barber at the moment either, apparently.
Well, he's got one though. That's the main thing.
If you want to throw your CV out there, get into his Insta mentions.
But look, hordes of Liverpool fans will go just to see him, reviving memories of the SAS from Brendan Rodgers' Liverpool from 2014, which should be a positive jolt to the entire league's attendance figures. I think I can't remember if it was you, Jesse, or you, Colby, that was saying that you're pretty keen to get along to a Perth game when they visit Melbourne or Brisbane, just so you can see it, right?
I will be. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, but look, like Sydney's alliance with Del Piero, I expect this to be of greater benefit off the pitch than on it. Sturridge will score goals and be a great ambassador for the league, but I don't see him enhancing the competitiveness of the Perth Glory squad that's still a bit lean in defence and midfield. This is especially for a Perth side that's lost their most creative player from the last few seasons in Diego Castro. 49 goals, 31 assists, and 141 appearances for the Glory over the past 6 seasons mean he was one of the most successful marquees in the A-League ever. The other big signing for Perth is Brandon O'Neill, and arguably he's a better on-field signing than Sturridge. Big call, maybe not. He'll bring some real quality and some more mobility to the Perth midfield after Neil Kilkenny left for the Woo. 40-year-old Brad Jones also joins. He'll be competing with 39-year-old Liam Reddy in a bit of a bizarre goalkeeping situation there, but it'd be interesting to see who actually gets the nod there. I'm predicting Perth are going to actually drop down this season to 10th due to probably scoring less goals and probably conceding more. And I wouldn't be surprised if Richie Garcia doesn't survive the season. Look, as far as the kits go, they're another one that's sponsored by Macron. The home kit's okay. And then Perth, I feel like have got sort of the most potential out of all of the A-League clubs with that really iconic sort of purple colour that they've used consistently over the last few years. And I mean, purple and orange is pretty iconic for them. But I feel like every year it's just not quite right. This season's probably another example of that where it's good but not great. But look, it's the away kit that I really want to talk about. Teal with purple trim is just a bit what. So
and then the orange sponsor.
Yeah.
Like it's just tell you what, Perth really missed the boat because in their crest this year is their original logo, which is honoring 25 years. The opportunity was to make like a 90s throwback kit that was like one of their old school kits. Like that's all the rage at the moment. And that would have been a viral FIFA kit kind of thing if they'd done that. So I think they really missed an opportunity there. But talking about sponsors that perfectly fit clubs, BHP is the perfect sponsor for Perth, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. But look, I'm going to give Glory's kits 4.5 purple and teal vomits out of 10.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, a lot of toothpaste in that away kit, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a very interesting soft teal with some weird collar details. There's a lot going on there. Boys, and there's a lot going on at Sydney as well. So I'll step up next with my preview of Sydney FC's season. Big frustration from last season for the poor, unfortunate Sydney FC fans was unfortunately they just didn't get any silverware last season. It was a real tough year for the fans, finishing second and making it to a grand final that they lost to Melbourne City. This season, they'll be just talking about having another tilt, and I think the club and the fans will be back out there with a vengeance. In terms of their recruitment, big ins, Max Burgess coming over from the Woo. That was a saga that played out over a long period of time, but Sydney finally got the deal done, getting him in. They also brought in Donachie and Connor O'Toole from the Jets and Elvis Kamsoba from Melbourne Victory. So interesting recruitment, I would say, in terms of the ins. And they're pretty squarely replacing the outs, I would say, with Burgess replacing Bam Johan, who's going out, Donachie replacing McGowan, who's off to the Kuwait League, and Elvis Kamsoba sort of doing a similar role probably that Luke Ivanovic was doing for the club. And Burgess, I think, is a great, they're probably better off with Burgess than they were with Bam Johan, but not sure that Donachie is improving on the loss of McGowan, and not sure that Kamsoba is improving on the loss of Ivanovic. So,
who is the young guy that played at the back end of the season? He was only like 19, filled in at centre half for Sydney and was brilliant.
Warland,
I
would say.
Ben Warland, was that his name? Yeah. I think he's more likely to step up into that spot than Donachie. I feel like Donachie's kind of just stagnated over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be between Donachie and Warland for that back spot along Alex Wilkinson, who's playing another season at 37. It was looking like he might retire at the end last year, but he wants to go again and captain the side to some silverware that they'll be going for. So Sydney fans will be excited about being able to attend games with restrictions on attending sporting matches, lifting in time for the A-League to start in New South Wales and Victoria as well. So they'll be excited about that. And they'll just be excited about a fresh season and coming at it with another crack. But I think they will be nervous about their aging attack. So you've got Ninkovic at 36, Barbarousis 31, Lafondra 34, Bobo 36, all sort of that quartet leading Sydney's attack. And I know that age isn't as much of a factor in the A-League, but, it does bear mentioning. And the hole in defence, though, I think will be another thing and probably the main thing they should be nervous about, because with McGowan out, you'll have the battle between Donachie and Warland. Warland was an adequate replacement last season, but not sure whether either of them will sort of replace the output that they had from McGowan. And then Wilco at 37 playing on. Redmayne had a pretty inconsistent season last year, and so this might be the year that Heward Bell finally has a real crack at that number one spot in goals. So there'll be some things going on in defence, and I don't think it will be that settled. So
and I think they're probably likely to lose. I think they're probably likely to lose Joel King at some point too, because he's been brilliant and he'll probably be sought after to go somewhere else. So it's almost like Connor O'Toole was signed as a replacement for him in the anticipation that someone will come in and buy him soon, and that will unsettle things even more.
Damo on this pod, he's referred to as Joala King.
Sorry,
thanks,
mate.
mate.
Apologies. Do you mean Hoel? Hoel.
Joel.
I was also going to say those aging players. I mean, it won't be the first time a bunch of Sydney Boomers have blocked the youth, though.
Like beachfront real estate. I tell you what. Damo. Joel King was one of my players to watch as well, because he was brilliant for them last season. And I think you're right. I think we'll be watching him probably not only on the field, but also off the field in terms of the interest that might be coming in for him. But also Callum Neuenhoff, who lit up the league earlier last year before suffering that injury that took him out for most of the season, and he'll be back as well as I think Tommie. Max Burgess is your boy, isn't he?
He was, but look, I kind of hope that he doesn't. I hope that he doesn't do well this season, because after he basically just went on strike last season, refused to play, or was frozen out of the squad at the Woo for bad attitude. I think, he hasn't played for 12 months. I think he's gonna. It's not going to be easy, I think, for him to even get into the Sydney starting 11.
Big bad Max.
Well, he will be one to watch for Sydney, and certainly to see how that storyline continues. But in terms of a successful season, clubs like Sydney won't settle for anything less than a premiership trophy. And so they'll be back like a wounded animal after missing out last year. I think they will go deep. I think they will make an appearance at the grand final again, but I think they're going to finish third in the season overall. Right. So onto their kit now. Umbro have dropped the new kits for Sydney FC with pretty clean looking tile designs. Under Armour, sorry.
Yeah.
I got my U kit manufacturers wrong. Under Armour. Yeah, sorry, Tommie.
Really upset, Tommie.
Yeah, Tommie's having a fit right now. So the Under Armour kits have brought that tile design in the background as a nod to the Opera House, and I quite like them, I have to say, both home, away, and their third kit as well. Although the third kit is called Violet Night, and it's apparently the colour of Sydney's unique coloured skies. So I like them still, but I'm giving them 8.5 insular flogs out of 10.
I like these kits apart from like the sleeves that look like you've got a long sleeve t-shirt under a short sleeve t-shirt. Like, why have they got two sleeves? Kind of, I don't know what's going on there.
I didn't notice that at first, but yeah, you make a good point.
Well, I can't unsee
it. It's like you've got two shirts on and your undershirt's longer.
Everyone's got the captain's armband.
Yeah. So I really like the kits, and I think the away kit's really cool because the white that blends into the blue at the bottom of the shirt, and then they've got the blue colored shorts as well, so it kind of blends down. I think that's really cool.
And the logo, the A-League
The
logo.
star logo works too.
It's really nice.
Yeah, star logo, and I like the way they've on the third kit as well. I like the way they've monochromed the badge as well. It's all white, black and white, or violet.
Colby,
and white.
the third kit felt to me sort of like the complete opposite of Raw's maroon kit. You know how they completely, it's like a competitor to that.
Yeah,
There's your state of origin battle. Those two kits.
Their kits last year and the year before that have been trash. So, I mean, this is an improvement for sure.
All right. Well, we'll move right on then, boys. So coming up next, Jesse, finally you're here with the Knicks. Tell us about what we can expect for their season.
Wow. Well, the Knicks have been absolutely gutted. There are a lot of players left, a few players returning. As far as last season, just a quick note on that, 7th, 1 point short of the final series. So you can't get any closer to getting into the finals. And for a while there, they looked pretty comfortably in the sort of top 6, then fell out and almost made a surge to get back in when they sort of played a few more games at home and picked up a few points at the end of the season. But it was a little bit, they left themselves with a little bit too much to do, and they were relying on other teams' results to get into the 6, which was never good. So essentially, they sort of got what they deserved in the end and didn't quite make the finals. So the trends of last season was actually very similar to the trends from the season before when we did the recap, which was, what you see under Tele is a lot of really nice possession. Actually, they can go toe to toe with pretty much any team in the competition when it comes to holding the ball and playing under pressure. It's just the end and the end product and the cutting edge, which has let them down a bit. And they have had a few different strikers come through this time, but now it's going to be up to the young guns to sort of see if they can combine with Hooper, who's come back from the Kerala Blasters. I never get old of it. That name never gets old to me.
It's a real T20 cricket kind of name, isn't it?
It's a real T20 cricket name from the Indian Super League. Lots of quality possession and almost games, I guess you could say, where they really, like we even went and watched one locally here in at Amy Park, where they play really well, but just don't quite get across the line. So yeah, that was frustrating for last season as a Knicks fan. And also, of course, the fact that they played away from home all season wasn't great. And I think they got a little bit exhausted by the end of it mentally as well. As far as ins, so we've got Gary Hooper, who I didn't recognize because he has hair again. Fantastic. Good on him.
He'd go to India and get plugs.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's done. He's some kind of wizardry, but Gary's got hair again and he looks a man reborn. Yeah, I have to agree with that in the comments there, Sal. It's it hurts. We've got a few other players that have come in. So we've got Bozanovsky from he's on loan from the Victory actually this season. So he's on loan until June. Callan Elliott returns from Greek club Xanthi, which we've all been mentioning. So they've basically supplied half the A-League. You've got one player that I'm really keen on is Nicholas Pennington, who's come across from Olbia Calcio in Sardinia. He's on a free. So that's exciting. But the other thing that I've noticed quite a lot in the transfers this year is a lot of free transfers from essentially the Phoenix Farm Club, which is Lower Hutt AFC. They basically just sort of an academy club, and they feed the Phoenix as far as talent. And so you've actually got quite a few players who've come through. With Marinovic, who's left, we need a new goalkeeper, so they've brought through Alex Paulson, Curtis Mogg as a centre back. Also from Lower Hutt, you've got Ben Old, an attacking midfielder. He's only 19. And also George Ott as a centre forward, 20 years old from Lower Hutt as well. So all these players have come in to replace some of these outgoing ones, which we'll mention in a second. And they have re-signed.
Jesse, I noticed a whole bunch of players have come in from Lower Hutt, like you just said. And I had a look because I actually thought that Lower Hutt were the official kind of academy club of the Phoenix. But they're not. But they've supplied something like 8 players to the Phoenix over the last 4 years. But Phoenix actually have their own reserves team in the same league as Lower Hutt. But they've actually given more first-team contracts to players from Lower Hutt than they have from the Phoenix reserve side. So it's like, what's going on there?
They're doing a buy and they just really want to win that New Zealand comp for the Phoenix reserves.
So for the Australian listeners, like we're Wellington, like the Wellington City bit of public transport chat for you, Tommie. North of Wellington, you've got the Hutt Valley, and that's where Lower Hutt and Upper Hutt is, and that's essentially like Geelong to Melbourne.
Can you get the train there?
You can get the train there, believe it or not.
Lovely.
And great views outside. Tell them I sent you. But
I actually love when they play at Lower Hutt. Wellington have played games there before, and that stadium's amazing.
They have. So where I'm going with this is that at one stage they did actually consider moving permanently there as their home ground because they had such strong support out there. So they have a lot of connections with the Hutt Valley, and obviously a lot of great players come through there. Couple of good re-signings. They've got Joshua Laws, the centre back, and James McGarry has re-signed as well on 2-year and 1-year contracts, respectively. When we move to the outs, okay, so this is where there's a bit of a bloodbath. You've got Davila, who we've talked about earlier, huge loss to MacArthur. Toa Mohammed has gone to Western Sydney Wanderers, so that's the social hand grenade handed to another club for another year. Marinovic, we talked about before. He's gone to Israeli club Hapoel Nov Hagalu. Have I got that one right? When I typed that into Google to see how to pronounce it, it said how to pronounce Erling Haaland. So that wasn't particularly helpful. Cam Devlin spent approximately 2 months at Newcastle Jets before he went to Hearts in Scotland. So a huge stint at Newcastle for Cam. Another big loss. His graft in the midfield is going to be a huge loss to the Phoenix. Stephen Taylor was announced as club captain and then a few days later retired. So RIP Stephen Taylor being the captain for this year. And we have lost a few other players. They wouldn't really have been that notable when you go through the ins and outs. But to Atafai Hudson Wahongi has gone back to
He was my boy last season, which I'm really disappointed that he didn't get another contract.
So there goes another double barrel to Auckland United. And then you've got Matthew Redenton's without a club. Muradovic is without a club, which is RIP to me because I picked him to be a bit of a player last year. And now he's without a club.
Me too.
Luke De Vere is without a club and Liam McGing is without a club as well. So a few of those players could be fair game for other clubs as we come up to sort of the season starting. So they still might get a contract with other clubs. As far as what to be excited about, well, essentially what I was talking about there with the academy prospects and the Lower Hutt players. I mean, a lot of unknowns there. Even for myself, like I don't see too much of the NZ Premiership over here. So it'd be really exciting to see how they deal with the step up. I didn't know this, but I was having a wee look online, and as far as the Knicks are now the club with the most recipients of the Johnny Warren Medal with 4. After Davila tied it last year with Ninkovic. So they're actually producing and discovering.
Bit of MTAG trivia. Jacob Burns, Shane Smelts.
Yeah, I was going to say Smelts for sure, yeah. So like they're showing that they can obviously discover talent and the players get the talent out of them. But also like we've seen players here, Oliver Sale, Piscopo, Sam Sutton, Clayton Lewis are still in the squad who are not in the ins and outs, but they're there and still there from last year. And a few of those players went to the Ollie White's Tokyo tour, if you want to call it that, and did really well. So some really good off-season experience and keeping them fit. I also noticed, and the shout out to Harry Bartle from thefootballsack.com.au, didn't know that website existed. He pointed out that Tele has the highest win percentage of any Knicks coach in history of 42%. So after 2 seasons in charge, he has a 14+ goal differential. So that's pretty good for the club. And he's re-signed for another 2 seasons. So that's where I was going with that. It's actually a huge thing for us that he's decided to extend for another 2 years. Fans should be nervous about losing the Johnny Warren Medal winner, your top goal scorer, best defender, a captain that then decides to retire 2 days later, and a talented young midfielder all in the space of one off season. That is going to be pretty tough to bounce back from, and that's a few holes in the team. No more Mexican waves. No more singing with the Mexicans in the away bay. That's sad for me, but a lot of great memories.
Who's Sal's going to support in the A-League now? Yeah, he might have to go to jump ship to MacArthur now.
He's coming back to Brisbane, isn't he?
I don't want to hear the answers to that question. They should be nervous, but also a bit excited about the fact that the average age of the squad is 23, 24. So most of those players I mentioned before were 19, 20, or 21. So a lot of young players in the squad this year. And I mean, considering you've got Gary Hooper in there bringing the average up, if it's 23 says 24, then they're doing pretty well. Ones to watch, guys. Nicholas Pennington, centre midfielder. He made over 100 appearances in Serie C over in Italy. So he's one that I'm picking. He's basically one of my boys, and keep an eye out on him. He didn't start the preseason game against Sydney yesterday, but he's one to watch. And then a lot of those other young players like Ben Waine, who I'm excited about this year. What's a successful season? Making finals. I don't think that I'm going to come in here with the heated prediction I did last year, which is I want them to win the league. I don't think that's really realistic this year. I think that they've lost too many great players, but I think that a predicted finish and a successful finish for me would be 6th and give them a chance to sort of shake up the finals if they can get that far. Kit rating. They've actually retained the colours of the away kit from the year before, which I thought was interesting. I thought they'd changed that up, but they kept it. So you still got that sort of teal and dark blue combination for the away kit, which is quite nice. The home kit is good in the sense that I like the colour proportion, the black and yellow. So sometimes they can be a little bit too yellow or a little bit too black. So it's nice to see a good combo. But there is that cross shape on the jersey, which if you remove the Spark logo, is a little too Catholic for me. So I just close, but I give it a sort of a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's not
it's a bit of a crusade kit, Jesse.
Bit of a crusade kit. Yep.
The Catholic kit worked when De Villa, the Mexican, was there, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
Jesse, every player will be doing this, like when they score.
Yeah. But boys, I mean that's the end of Kiwi Corner. But any questions from you guys? I mean, any comments on what you're seeing? Because of course it is a real overhaul across the ditch.
It's just so hard to know what to expect from Wellington this year. I mean, like you said, you know what to expect in the way Tale is going to desire to play football, but whether or not the squad that he's been able to put together with so many new players is going to be able to produce the kind of football he wants, that's probably the main question.
Yeah, I think
he's going to be the kind of manager to die on his hill as his style.
Yep.
And I think keeping Tale around for another season is only a good thing. But I will have my eyes on Ben Waine. I'm a fan of the Waine. I'm on the Waine train.
Waine train.
And I'm looking forward to. Well, speaking of transport chat, boys, I'm on the Waine train, and I'm stopping all stations. So.
All right, who's next?
Well, up next we've got Damo with Western Sydney Wanderers.
I had a note on here about what their biggest frustration from last season was. And I think you can kind of sum up last season with their last probably 3 years combined. It's just been this never-ending sort of frustration from Wanderers fans. And ironically, a team that's lacking an identity when it's the last thing you would have imagined a Wanderers team would have lacked is identity after the way they introduced themselves to the league in their first few years in the league. That was what the whole club was built around. So they found themselves in a bit of spot where they haven't actually been able to rebuild from their good days. And Carl Robinson was supposed to be the manager to do that. He's been there for a while now. And obviously he came over late in the preseason last year. So he didn't really have a chance to kind of put together the squad in the preseason that he wanted. And it really came out towards the back end of the season when he made those comments about not having any leaders and players not stepping up and all those kind of comments that we spoke about at length that really weren't a good look for the club and the playing group and the managerial group and everything going on. But so that's something that they'll probably talk about a lot in the media, the fans. They'll talk about that kind of, has he brought those players in that he spoke about? Has the kind of culture of the team changed? We'll talk about who he's brought in a minute. And I think the answer to that is yes. I think he's brought the right players in to do that, to kind of play the style and be sort of more the culture of the club that he wants to build. And I think he's cut a lot of the fat out that he didn't enjoy that was at the club. So, but with that comes a lot of pressure. So Obviously, Wanderers are a huge club, and much like the other big clubs in the A-League, they expect to win year in, year out. And there's pressure from the fans, there's pressure from the media, and Carl he's been there for a full season now. So if he starts slowly and the pressure builds quickly, worst case scenario is if he leaves and Wanderers have to start over a rebuild again. And that's another year of this kind of turmoil that they've been in. So it'll be interesting to really see how they start the year. And much like Victory fans, if the fans come back, the famous RBB, whatever you want to call them, if they come back to the ground, if they can keep themselves out of trouble with New South Wales police and stadium security and make a bit of noise, but they're a huge part to what the Wanderers do. So if the Wanderers can start getting crowds back in Western Sydney Stadium, Combank Stadium, I think it's called now, then there could be a real influence. And all it takes is a good start to the season. They've lost a couple of players. They lost Mitch Duke, who's gone to the J-League 2. Nikola Milioznich gone to Central Coast. Jordan Much has gone to MacArthur. M-Tag favourite Bruce Kamau has left, unfortunately. He's gone to the Greek Super League, I think to Crete FC. We'll be following him and giving regular updates on him through the season, so don't worry about that.
Kamau watch.
Considering I couldn't even remember his name before, Dan.
He's dead to us. He's dead to you, Colby.
Yeah. Dylan McGowan's gone to Kilmarnock in Scotland. Kwame Yeboah's gone to Modelling FC. Graham Dorrans has gone to Dunfermline in the Scottish Championship. So that says something about his ability now. And then they've lost Scott McDonald and Ziegler as well to Retirement FC. So to be honest, I don't think there's a lot of huge outs this year in terms of influential players in their squad. I think there's a lot of people there that probably contributed to the bad culture that was going on. So that's kind of, I think Robinson's cut out a lot of good players there. And I think the ins that he's brought in are, he's brought the right people in. And I think the first one he's brought in is Rhys Williams, who I think he's going to captain the club. He's exactly the kind of leader that Robinson was talking about and that he needs and that he wants. So there's him. There's Adama Traore in the back line as well. Johnny Kutrumbus in the back line. Tommie up front, obviously had a great season last year with Wellington. Jack Rodwell's just signed a 2-year deal with the Wanderers and play in midfield or won't play in midfield. He'll be with the physio for the most of the time, but makes good headlines. But I think, and then obviously Terry Antonus has come in too. But for me, the two biggest signings for Wanderers this year, and they're my two players to watch. First one is Dimi Petratos, who's come from the Saudi League, where he had a great run there, and then kind of fell out of favor with a new manager. So he's back, and I think he'll have a great season. And then the other one is Kejiro Oguar. He's a Japanese player who he's 29 years old, and he's played 324 J-League games for some of the biggest clubs in Japan. He played for Vissel Kobe, he's played for Yokohama, and now he's on loan from Yokohama to Western Sydney. And it was a real kind of head-turning transfer. Like, why did he go to Western Sydney? It feels like he could still cut a great career in the J-League, and that's a better level. So he's really my one to watch this year. And he played 26 games in the J-League last year and scored 9 goals. So yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to for Wanderers fans, and for them, a successful season would be they have to play finals football. I think that's as Wanderers, that's kind of the minimum expectation. But I think they're going to finish in the top 4 and have a good crack at a semi-final. I think a big year from Wanderers. I really think Carl Robinson's going to have everything kind of put together. He's brought the right people in, and really looking forward to watching them play this year and everything that comes along with that. As for their kits, so the kits are good. I've got a note here that, it's really hard to go wrong with hoops. And hoops they're hard to get wrong, but they're never spectacular. They're your James Milner of kits. They're consistently good and never bad, but never brilliant. So
they're requiring a lot of Voltaren and James Milner for the old joints.
I did think one cool thing to note was both their home and away kit this year have spaced the hoops enough so they could have 10 hoops around their kit, which signifies 10 years of the club. So I think that was one cool sort of addition to their design. But I think if we talk about their third kit, which is the kind of 90s design, it looks like you've just grabbed a couple of paintbrushes and just flicked it over the shirt real quick. I like that. I think it's, it's what's popular now. We were talking about fluoro tops before. Now it's, the 90s kind of all over the place design. And then the fourth kit that I've got on this picture is actually a goalkeeper's kit. The goalkeeper's kit that's got it looks like someone's Wolverine scratched you across the chest, but you filled out with the rainbow. So I think I really vibe that goalkeeper kits. And I think Wanderers, I give them 8 Voltarans out of 10 for their 4 kits this year.
Kappa.
Yeah, and Kappa, and I love Kappa, and I actually love all the Wanderers merch more than I love their kits.
Are they the
merch they put out?
Are they the PSG?
Yeah, they are. The Wanderers are a fashion label as well as a football club at the moment. You just go to Bankstown, 2200, brother, and they've got Kappa kits everywhere.
There's a bit of a, speaking of like big European clubs, there's a bit of a Manchester United sort of feel to that Wanderers squad, I think, with just a lot of big names. I'm not really sure how it's all going to fit together at this point. So,
well, wait till you hear what my bold claim is.
Oh, okay.
Ooh. Another spicy preview. Well, rounding us out, Tommie, take us home with the Woo.
Yeah, no worries. Look, after a challenging 2020-21 season where the Woo finished third bottom, the Woo have moved on from declining results of the Wooden era onto the John Aloisi era. At the Raw, John Aloisi tried to blend extremes of youth and experience, and he's done a similar job here with building this season's squad of the Woo. He's brought in Neil Kilkenny and capped 48 times with Slovenia Rene Kirin for midfield solidity, while Nikolai Topor-Stanley and Swiss international Leo Lacroix will join Tomoki Imai at the back. You got experienced shot stopper Jamie Young also joining from the Raw too. Meanwhile, up top, you've got journeyman striker Alex Projovic, recently joined after stints in Switzerland, Italy, England, Norway, Sweden, Turkey, Poland, Greece, and Saudi Arabia. He's got a decent
of journeyman, right?
That's journeyman, yeah.
100%. He makes what was it? Your boy Damo, Matt Derbyshire, look like he was settled in one spot by comparison. But look, he's got a pretty decent goal record everywhere that he's been, and at only 31. Yes, only 31. He should still have plenty to offer. I think he actually even got on the score sheet last night in the FFA Cup as well.
It was a gift. But look, early Christmas present, that one.
Well, look, they all count. Aloisi will be hoping that some of his experience rubs off on Noah Bodic and Christian Theoharis, both joining on frees from Bundesliga clubs Hoffenheim and Borussia Mönchengladbach, who, alongside Dylan Wenzel-Hall, Dylan Perez, Lockie Wales and Connor Payne will be fighting for spots up front and out wide. But look, it's Alessandro Diamanti who remains key to their season as long as he stays fit. Mark Redan found a way to keep him fresh and central to everything good about the Woo for their inaugural season and winning the Johnny Warren medal in his first season and then getting 8 goals and 16 assists across those 2 seasons. Diamanti staying fit is basically the most important thing for their overall season coming up.
I think the most important thing for Tommie is that Diamanti stays away from a Sharon.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so fucking triggered by that. Every time I see him doing anything to do with AFL, I'm like, you're not getting paid to promote the AFL. Stop it.
Every time Diamanti tweets about Carlton, Tommie pulls his hair out.
Oh, mate, kills me. But look, the Woo will remain vagabonds throughout this season, and that's a problem. They can't break ground soon enough at their new stadium out at Tarneet, if nothing else other than to silence the howls of liars from the Peanut Gallery on social media. It's rumoured that works for the first stage of the new precinct will begin by the end of this year, but we've heard similar things like that for a while now. The Woo do have an experienced deep squad which could push top 2 if things do click, but worst case, I'm predicting they'll be playing finals. To be more specific, I'm predicting that they'll finish 4th. As we were just saying about Western Sydney's kit, though, the Woo have got the vertical stripes, and it's virtually identical to last year's and their inaugural kit. So it's really their away kit where they get a little bit creative, though, and everyone remembers sort of like those interesting kits the last couple of years. Yeah, this time around they've gone with a white kit with a thin green stripe and a thin black stripe right up the middle, which I actually really like. It's a little bit like Newcastle's, I think, away kit as well, similar sort of flavour to it. But I think it's a really nice kit. Looks the goods. I'm going to give their kits overall 6.5 unbuilt stadiums out of 10, though.
I love the irony that they're sponsored by Simmons, a property development group.
Not lost on us. Well, there you go. That's your preview of all 12 A-League teams for their upcoming season. But before we go, we'll do a quick season preview overall. We'll go around and we'll shout out who we think are going to be the premiers, who we think are going to be the champions, the FFA Cup winners. We'll give a pick for Wooden Spoon, Golden Boot, and we'll shout out maybe a player of the season and who you think the first manager sacked is going to be, as well as your boys and a bold prediction. I don't know if we'll have time to give one of each of those, but Tommie, why don't you get us started? Shout out a few of your key predictions out of those.
Yeah, all right. I think City are going to finish top. I think the Bulls are going to finish in the top 3. I think...
Is that your bold prediction?
No, not yet. Maybe we'll skip through to my boy since I haven't really mentioned that. I think Rafael Borges Rodriguez, I think he's going to have a cracking year alongside Nick Pennington, who Jesse already mentioned, and Luka Ivanovic. I think he's going to blow up this year at the Raw. But my bold prediction is that Richie Garcia and Daniel Sturridge are going to fall out, inevitably leading to Richie Garcia getting the sack. And
is that bold or is that just like inevitable?
Maybe it's not that bold.
Yeah, we've already had that predicted in the chat by the Homer legend as well. He tips Garcia to be the first coach, and he's going to be axed by December, and Ernie Merrick being brought in to replace him.
Is there anyone here that thinks that Garcia won't be the first manager to be sacked?
No, I agree.
Maybe not that bold then.
I actually think that Milicic will be.
Oof.
That's my bold prediction.
Not bad.
Big pressure on him too, yeah. But I guess my bold prediction then is that Lecky, J-Mac and Naboo will start for the Socceroos together in Melbourne against either Japan or Vietnam in 2022.
How is that possible if Graham Arnold refuses to play Macca?
Arnie out.
Or save it for the Socceroos pod listeners. That'll be dropping sometime towards the end of the week, so look out for that one. Damo, why don't we go to you next? Shout out a few of your key predictions out of those.
Yeah, look, I'm echo Tommie with City doing the double again this year. I am calling for Wanderers to win the FFA Cup. I think they'll win the cup. And then my wooden spoon shout is Wellington. Sorry, Jesse, that's my shout for the wooden spoon. But Golden Boot, J-Mac. But this is my bold call. And Johnny Warren medalist all in the one is Dimi Petratos, and he'll almost book his spot on the plane to Qatar 2022.
Oh my goodness.
So run the tapes back on that in about 9 months' time and tell me how stupid I am.
You may as well have said Craig Goodwin, Damo.
Yeah, but my boys, Craig Goodwin, Petratos, and Johnny Yule. And I'll gas them every week.
Wow. Jig was...
Oh
yeah,
my head's spinning after that.
Yikes!
Jeez, I should have gone first with my bold prediction. It's nowhere near that bold. Jesse, what about you, mate?
Premiers, I think Melbourne City. Unfortunately, I think the squad is so deep that even if they lose a player or two, they've just got players that are just frothing to get into the starting 11. So I think that'll be too much for the rest of the league. So I think they'll be champions as well once we get through the finals. Wooden Spoon, I think, unfortunately, the Mariners will fall back down there. I do think it's very interesting, just as a side note, that there are a number of teams that I only think they're just good enough to get to 6. So you're going to have like this, like potentially a shit fight just to get that final spot. There might be a number of teams that don't deserve it, but it'll just be like whoever picks up the most points and draws across the season. First manager sacking, I think it'll be Milicic, which leads to my bold prediction that the MacArthur Bulls may start okay briefly, but I think they're going to tank and self-cannibalize and potentially become vegan. And I think that what will happen is that the patients will be like they'll get second season syndrome over at the Bulls, but they won't have a vaccine for it. So that's my prediction there. So I think that a lot of people will be focused on other clubs naturally because they might have had similar expectations. But I think MacArthur look a little more volatile to me at the moment. So my pick is that if things don't go well there, we might see a quick manager sacking.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they're going to blow up. I think they're gonna go second. I think they're going to go big this season.
My boy is also Pennington that you mentioned before, Tommie. I think he's going to be great. Ben Wayne, just to keep it all in the mix. And I think Motore. I think Motore is going to have a cracking season. So I've got my eye on him.
My boy's still Musa Torre, so we'll wait a couple of years until he finally gets a game in the first team.
The Torre production line.
He's both Mo and Al Hassan say he's a better player than them, but what big brother doesn't say that about their little brother?
Wow, we boys.
Colby.
Well, look, I'm actually gonna do the clean sweep of all the MTAG hosts in saying that Melbourne City are gonna do the double this year. I just don't see anyone stopping them from winning the league and winning the grand final. So. I think it's going to be back to back for Melbourne City. I'm actually predicting the VUC to win the FFA Cup, and I think the VUC will have a very good season as well. I think they're going to finish second, and I think they're going to be challenging at least in the semi-finals
for VUC Cup.
I think they're going to come back very strongly this season. For all that I would love them to get the wooden spoon again, and I'd love to just trash them because I just don't really like the club very much. I just think with Popovic there and with the recruitment and the investment they've put in, they'll come back in a big way. Wooden spoon, I think, is going to go to the Mariners. I agree with Jesse there. I think things are going to fall apart for them, unfortunately. First manager sacking, can't disagree with Garcia, but I like the shout of Milicic. My boy, obviously Parsons, as we all know. So, and my bold prediction, and I don't know how bold this is now, but I don't think we were making the finals. I'm predicting them to finish sort of 8th or 9th. Ooh. They're under Aloisi, their squad is shallower than the portion of the pitch that's been dug into at Tarneit. So.
Did anyone else find it particularly difficult to predict who's going to be finishing between about 2nd and about 10th?
Well, this is what I'm saying. There's going to be a cluster around about that 6th position where I don't think you're necessarily going to get in the finals based on just season merit. I think it's going to be like just a bit of luck and other teams will drop points. And there's probably going to be like a number of teams between 6, 7, 8. Which are just like maybe don't deserve to make it, but if you're good enough to climb the pile, you might get into the finals. So it's weird. There's a chasm in quality.
That's why this season is a must watch. I think there's a lot going to happen in that middle portion of the league.
It is a must watch season, Damo, and we'll be covering it all the way. More Than a Game will be with you there, covering the matches. We'll be bringing you match reviews each week. And wrapping all of that up. So that's going to do it for the pod today. Thank you for listening. And stick with us as we preview and review the A-League matches throughout the season. If you've enjoyed the show today, you can support us by gassing us up to your mates on social media and getting around us as well. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well for the video version of this pod where we record and which drops a day or two before the pod comes out. So we usually record on a Sunday night where the pod normally comes out on a Monday or a Tuesday by the time we're done editing it. So and we'll link to all of those in the show notes for you. Next week, we'll have a podcast wrapping up the Socceroos' recent World Cup qualifiers, and then we'll be back with the Premier League and round 1 of the A-League. Until then, enjoy the football.